Yes. Okay. Um, I'm gonna see if I can rush through this a little bit so we can get to the interesting stuff. I don't need to rush. Okay. Um, so I'm Thomas. I go by Watson on GitHub, and yeah. Anyway, so a while back I did this thing where I wanted to build a printer in JavaScript because of various things that happened. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to talk about some stuff related to security that I found out while I was doing that. And of course, you don't need any hardware, though. The whole reason why I was delayed was because I had to figure out something with hardware that didn't work, which is why it's better not to do it with hardware, I guess. So this all started because I was trying to implement AirPlay in JavaScript, and then I figured out that there was something called Bonjour that is beneath AirPlay that AirPlay uses to kind of advertise itself on the network. And it's basically like a multicast DNS thing that is going on, and it means that you can like broadcast your settings on the network, so you don't need to like set up anything. You just can discover things. So I learned a lot about that, and there was a good experience learning that. And then I found out this standard that's called DNS Service Discovery, or DNS SD. And that led me down an interesting path where I was looking through the DNS SD spec, and there's a lot of like standardized things that you can advertise on your network, and one of them was IPP, Internet Printing Protocol. And I always learned that printers were like these things that would require drivers and CDs, as we just learned before, and it was really like hard to set up. But apparently there was this thing that is using Zeroconf, which means no configuration, so it should just work. And that didn't connect with printers in my mind, so I was like, that's interesting. So I looked into the standard, and it turns out it's basically just using HTTP to connect to the printer. And HTTP, like, that's easy, right? So it's setting like the content type application IPP, and then some other headers, and then the body will be basically your print job. So like, okay, that's cool. And I looked into it, and I found out that there's like a lot of different HTTP requests, or different types of HTTP requests you can send to the printer, and you can get like the list of jobs that are on the printer, and you can cancel a job, and you can like pause the printer and do all that stuff, like stuff you would expect to be able to do with a printer, right? And they all have like this hex value that you have to set as the third byte or second byte in the body. So all this stuff is going on in the body. Actually, the HTTP post is just like the same endpoint that you post to all the time to talk to the same printer, and then the different kind of things you want to do with the printer is this binary blob that's in the body of the HTTP request. And the body, I've written like all the hex stuff here, but indented it a little bit. So basically, the body of the HTTP request is simply just a set of key values. So first of all, you say, hey, version 1.1 of the standard, and this is like what you want to do. This is an operation. So that is like get printer attributes, for example, like figure out how much toner is in the printer. And then you have a request ID that you echo back, so you can have multiple requests going on at the same time, and when you respond to a request, the client knows which request as a printer you're responding to. And then you have these key value pairs where you can have all sorts of metadata about the print job, or if you're requesting data, the printer will also use these key value pairs to like get data back to you. And yeah, whatever. So key value, and you can have different types. They basically implemented a whole type system in this like very weird format. And then at some point you reach like end of attributes, and now comes if this is actually a print job, because there's like different kinds of operations you could send to the printer, and not all of them actually have a document inside it. But if it has a document inside it, then like that would come just as the rest of the body of the HTTP request. So I implemented all that in something called IPP encoder that you can get on GitHub. That is basically encoding and decoding of this data, and it of course supports this awesome abstract encoding standard that I think Macintosh, did you start that? Yeah, it's a really awesome thing. So basically all that weird hex stuff that you saw before has been made into a little bit more nicer JavaScript object that you can use. So you decode the body, you handle the request in some way. This is like if you're like making your own printer. And then you want to echo, you want to send back a response, and this is basically that stuff that you saw in Hex before in a little bit more user-friendly manner. And you can have a status code, request ID that you echo back, and all the different attribute groups with the key value pairs. And you can even have like stuff like a language. So if the printer client supports like different languages, you can like send back stuff in different languages to the client, so you can show like a nice error message to the user, or status message in the user's preferred language. And then you just then you encode it, and then you get like this binary thing that you saw before. Anyway, so I was like, interesting, let's build a printer. So I figured out that to support the standard, you need these 6 different operations that you need to support. The others doesn't matter. So I built that using, and it's called an IPP printer. And, oops. And if we go, I'm just going to put this down. So basically, I built a simple printer here, and I require IPP printer in the beginning. This is just Node. And I do new printer, and I give it a name. This is going to be the name that it's going to have on the network. And then it's an event emitter, so every time there's a job, I get a job object, and I can get like different information on the job object, like the name of the print job and stuff like that. And then it's just a stream, so I can just stream this data. In this case, I just stream it to the file system, so I get like a file of the print job. So if we try to run this, so now it's actually advertising on the network. So if I go into so now I actually see the SquatConf printer that we had, that we're advertising, and I'm just saying, yeah, add this printer. Okay, that's cool. So now I have a SquatConf printer on my computer, and so let's say we want to print this page, and I select the SquatConf printer, click print. And now it's actually sending a print job to the Node process. There we have it. And this is just a PostScript, so I can open it. And there we have the printed page. So that's all fine. What can you do with that? Well, I was thinking you could make this NCFACP project where you sell it to like all the security agencies, because you can like do stuff to the print job now, so you can like make a printer that automatically does this when you print something. Like, so it doesn't have to employ people to sit there and do, like, really, really easy. Yeah, you can replace words and stuff. Like you can do, yeah, you could actually print kittens or what was like the pony porn thing. Yeah. So also there's this thing called printben. The name kind of gives it away, but so So it's basically like this global printer that I installed on the internet, and everybody can print to it. And all you do is you just follow this guide to install the printer. Just basically copy this if you're on OS 10, or you can install a Node module and just run it, and it will have you like easily install the printer. When you have the printer installed, you can just, this is going to be meta, which is going to print this. Already have the printer. And so now it's actually sending the print job to the internet. And if you refresh, it's just going to come on. It's going to come. It needs to process it. Let's see what is going on the printer here. Looking for printer. Okay, I need to. Sometimes I don't know why it needs to like get the IP of the printer again. It didn't used to do that. Maybe it's like the new operating system here. So now it's connecting, printing, then it's printed, refresh, there we have it. So everybody can print to this, and everybody can see every other print job that everybody else is printing, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. I keep it around for 7 days right now, but maybe I should increase that to more. So that's that. So that's printbin. So now for the actual topic of this talk. So while I was digging through all these lovely protocols, and I do mean lovely protocols because I love these weird protocols, and it's a weird flaw that I have. I figured out that it's just using Bonjour. The reason why it's just showing up when I'm going into the printing dialog and just shows up, and I don't have to type an IP address, is because it's using MDNS. It's to broadcast its location on your local network. And this printer had been on while I was giving the talk here, and it's been broadcasting, hey, I have this IP and I support this protocol, and you can just print to me. So anybody of you could actually have set this printer up and started printing. None of you did yet. It's not showing up. Let's see. There is a printer on the network. Yeah. So, anyways, before we get to that, it should be online. I'm going to talk about the attack vector. So, I was saying it's using Bonjour to broadcast itself on the network. And Bonjour have this, or this thing that you saw before, the DNS SD, DNS service discovery, which is an RFC. You can read all about it on the RFC page thing. This is not really a vulnerability per se. It's built into the standard. It's part of the spec that if you have two devices on the network that decides to call themselves the same name, you need to kind of figure out a resolution, and one of them have to change their name. So when I install this printer, I basically say I want to install the printer by this name. And if the printer ever changes its IP, that's pretty nice. Now, like, the name is the key for me to talk to the printer. So even if the IP changes, I can still print on the same printer because I use the name as the key. So now my computer knows that, oh, this is the printer by this name I want to print on. So it will just, if I can convince the printer to change its name and then have another printer by that name that I installed on the network, then all the computers that used to print to the old printer now just think that the printer just got a new IP and it's just going to start printing to that printer, which I control. So it's part of this. It's part of the spec, this name changing thing, because you can't have two things on, because the key has to be unique for this thing to work, of course. So what I can do is I can send a malicious MDNS packet to the network. That will then force the printer or any other MDNS SD device on the network, for that matter, to change the name. All the clients on the network will then see my malicious emptiness packet saying, if the packet is saying, hey, I'm a printer, I have this name, and this is my IP and port. So the target printer will say, fuck, I have to change my name. The clients will say, oh, the printer got a new IP. Like the same packet. And what I then need to do is basically just host a virtual printer, and we just learned how to do that. And then instead of only writing the files to disk, I just forward it to the actual printer. So nobody's wiser. Because, I mean, I know what the actual IP and port of the printer is, right? And you all know the name of that attack, of course. So I went ahead and wrote a little tool called BCC. So you write BCC. Oh, actually, before we do that, I of course need to install the printer. So here's the printer. Actually, I haven't done this with this printer before, so it's going to be interesting. I tried to install the drivers before to get it to work with the like configure it. So this is gonna be interesting. First time demo. So I run BCC, and I am on the network, right? Yeah. Let's see. Okay, try to run it again. Where was it? Oh, weird. Maybe I didn't run it actually. There we go. So it asked me to select the printer, and it found one printer on the network. I select that. And now it's basically just waiting for print jobs. It's already took over the printer, and it forced it to change its name. And now it's advertising itself on the network as the same printer. So we just installed it. We have it here. Actually, can you notice below it says, oh, there's a nearby printer that is called almost the same with the letter 2 attached then. It's because the printer is, every time you're forcing it to change its name, it's just adding this integer to the end of the name to like update the name with like one more every time. But we're going to use the printer that we already installed, and we're going to print this. We're going to have a long chain of. So it's sending a lot of. You can see it's receiving a lot of requests. I never seen it receive so many. It's apparent. Oh, and now it's printing. And you can see the number is going up. So. And it's receiving a lot of requests, but it's not really. Yeah. It's not getting the document for some reason. Though the document did come out, so it did like funnel through this. Okay, demos. What are you going to do? So this IPP protocol that it's using, first, like your client will actually try to figure out, is any toner left? Is the paper in the, like what properties does the printer support? And so it will try to send a couple of different requests. I've never seen it to send 34. It's probably because it's not agreeing on something. I could actually try to, but it's really normal that there is a couple of handshakes where it's figuring out the properties of the printer and is it online and all that stuff. Let's try to see if we can. So now there's number 2 there. We're going to select that because that's the actual printer. Yeah. So basically, like every time I run this, it's now taking over the one with the number 2. So now there's going to be, in a second, there's going to be one with 3, I think. It could be. I've never seen that though. I think. To be honest, I don't know exactly what's going on here. Let's try print again. It is receiving. Okay, so maybe I just bought this printer and I haven't tried this before, so maybe it's using a version of the protocol that I don't entirely support. But I mean, we can see that the HTTP requests are coming through to my laptop, and it is funneling them over to the printer. So, anyways, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So, one final thing is that while I've been like testing this out, doing all this stuff, I learned a lot of stuff about the secret menu you can enable. And when I want to test this, I don't have a printer, so I just bought this one now, which is why I haven't tested it. But usually I go to an office and test it because there's a lot of print jobs there. And the problem is, of course, that when I leave the office, nobody can print anymore because I renamed their printer. And my computer is not functioning as this proxy anymore. So to clean up after myself, I enabled this secret menu in my browser called Bonjour, and most printers will actually show up there because they have a web interface. The printer is angry right now. So, yeah, this was a good 80 euros I spent. So normally the printer will show up here. I don't know, maybe it's gone into sleep mode. Oh yeah, it has. So. No, so if the printer is following the spec, it has to commit the new name to memory. So even if it's restarted, it's always using the new name.
This is the best hack ever.
So, and at any given moment here, we're gonna. It takes a while to join the network. Let's see. I wrote this tool so I can see if there's printers on the network right now. It has like a 1 minute sleep time. This printer. So, yeah. So, anyways, so it's showing up. So normally all the offices I've been in, it's showing up. Oh, here's the printers on the network, and they all have a website, and you can go look at the website, and that website is basically the management interface of the printer. And none of these places I've been have actually password protected that management interface. So what I can actually do is I can go in and I can just rename the printer back when I leave. And now it's shut off again. Yeah. Whatever. That's a very low timeout. Anyways, so I can actually just go into so I can just rename the printer back, and I haven't yet found anybody who actually password protects their printers. Maybe I can show it just in a second when it's. Yeah. So thank you.